Good evening, everyone. We're coming to you from the Wellness Center, and our topic today in Are You Well is about sleep or rest, like your body depends on it. I am joined today by two wonderful medical students, Dia and Nicole. Could you say hi, introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Dia. I'm a second year medical student and I'm on the student board for Are You Well last year along with Nicole.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I'm also a second year medical student, and as Dia mentioned, I was also part of the student group Are You Well?
So, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Judy. I'm your wellness liaison, and we come to you every month with a different topic. So, when we talk about rest or sleep, I think it's really appropriate that we're doing it this month. Just shifting from daylight savings time or to daylight savings time is a really good reason to find yourself a little bit off your game, just a little bit more tired. Having just a little more light in the evening really does affect your sleep routine and your circadian rhythm. There was actually a great interview on Channel 5 with Dr. James Rowley from Rush March 5th, if you want to catch that. By the way, he did advocate for permanent standard time, and it does help synchronize the body clock to the rising of the sun with more light in the morning, which is actually found to be more healthy. It's kind of something to think about. We do come, like I said, each month on a Wednesday at noon and the following Wednesday at 6 so that we reach most of you that interested in any type of wellness. So today is about sleep and rest. And then in April, we have Supercharging Your Brain with a third in-person event on April 8th for the college. And then in May, we'll finish up with Restoring Your Emotional Energy. So I'm very glad that we will all be together for that. All right, so let's start out with a grounding exercise like we usually do. If you sit back in your chair, put your feet on the floor, hands in your lap, kind of roll those shoulders back, be able to kind of get into a relaxation mode. You've been busy all day. I'd like you to take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And feel your feet on the floor, your feet in your shoes on the floor, your body against the chair. Kind of ground yourself into where you are right now. If you have the ability to look out the window to be able to find some green gray, that's actually the most calming colors for your brain. Your eyes will attend to blue, but your brain will calm to green gray. So you do want to be able to find that, or even just kind of imagine a place that you've been or you'd like to go, and hold that image in your mind as I ask you to close your eyes for just a moment. Putting your hand over your heart, taking those 3 deep breaths again, and listen to my voice. Just settle in, take those deep breaths, and think of a person who's been kind to you. Could be a grandparent, a teacher, a parent, a partner, a friend, even a beloved pet. Allow yourself to feel this kindness and this warmth. Imagine this person wishing you well, gazing at you with understanding, kindness, and compassion. Imagine them sending you this blessing, possibly even saying these words. May you be safe and protected. May you be healthy. May you be held in kindness and compassion. Take a deep breath and stretch. So hands out in front of you to round your back. Hands over your head. Grab one wrist, pull to the side. Grab the other wrist, pull to the other side. Hands behind your back to open up your chest. Take a deep breath and shake it out. And while we do that, if everybody could mute, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Right, so what we're talking about today, about rest, is that we want to think about what's going on in the world of sleep and rest. We all do it, right? We all need it. Getting a good period of sleep is universally important to all humans. So for the next hour, in honor of World Sleep Day, which was on March 18th, we're encouraging you to review your own sleep patterns, learn something new in this next hour, or take a nap. All right, so what I'd like you to do is think about your two top sleep issues, all right? And so we're going to switch over to Slido. And what that'll do is show you what they chose last week as top sleep issues. And you're invited to use the QR code or the passcode that's on there with slido.com. Be using that either way to be able to join in and put in what you think your two top issues are for sleep. I think there were some amazing things, just like don't even think about it, that, you know, having your phone in the room could be something that holds you back from sleeping, especially when you're getting those 3 a.m. coupons dropped from Kohl's or wherever. Just your everyday life, whether it's work, school, life, family, can be exhausting. Yes, the phone, absolutely. When it started to become the smartphone, that's when we started to get in trouble, because there was no time that you were free from the phone. That when people texted you, they expected you to respond right away. That you could get emails, you could get documents, you can get everything on your phone. And so you feel that it's invaluable and it has to be next to you. And if you leave it at home, you actually feel panicked, anxious that you don't have it because it does so much. And so you actually have to think about it for the first couple hours of what you're going to do to manage. And then you find you really can do without it. It's just pretty kind of amazing if you've ever left your phone at home. Things that keep you up, anxiety, absolutely. That rumination, that hamster wheel in the middle of the night that wakes you about 3:30 in the morning. Yes, yes, definitely. I love the honesty here about the snoring spouse and about the 4-year-old and about being worried and busy mind and just staying up late. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have responsibility with your family, elder care, child care, absolutely. And you have to do it because that's who you are, right? All right, so thank you for sharing those things. And that poll will stay open. There is another question that'll come up a little bit later. All right, so we're going to have some definitions so that we're all kind of on the same page here. I want to start out with melatonin because I think that's kind of an interesting thing. The fact that it regulates our energy metabolism and our glucose homeostasis, and it regulates circadian rhythm and sleep. So darkness stimulates that pineal gland to secrete melatonin. So if we don't have darkness, if we've got the blue screens going, the TV, the iPad, the phone, we have all these things, the computer, we're actually decreasing our ability to have melatonin in our system, so we will not naturally go to sleep. So that's a very important thing. Too much melatonin can produce a rebound insomnia, so you want to be careful that more is not better. Eggs and fish are natural ways to get melatonin, also mushrooms and germinated legumes and seeds. Tart cherry juice is also a recommended alternative. If you're thinking about amount, you want no more than 10 milligrams of melatonin for adults, and not to take it if you have any kind of kidney or liver problems or epilepsy. It's not recommended for long-term use. This is just like if you're having trouble to go to sleep, you're going to use it once in a while. And 5 milligrams will last you about 4 to 5 hours. Its half-life is about 20 to 40 minutes. Okay? Sleep cycles, we'll talk more about it, just reoccurring patterns. We've got stages of sleep on our docket to talk about, and then sleep hygiene, just healthy sleep behaviors that help you fall asleep and stay asleep, and that's a real critical piece of that. All right, so we're going to continue on with starting with Dia. Would you go ahead and take it away?
Yes, so the science of sleep. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different stages of sleep. And most of you have probably heard of REM sleep. So REM sleep is rapid eye movement sleep. So your eyes are moving quickly behind the eyelids while you're sleeping, and the breathing rate increases. You're usually dreaming and your body is paralyzed, so you can't act out your dreams. And there's a sleep disorder actually called REM sleep behavior disorder, in which the body is unable to paralyze the muscles, and you can actually move around, sleepwalk, and act out your dreams. And this could be dangerous considering the severity of the disease, and considering the surroundings, whether there's a partner sleeping next to you. The other stage of sleep that I want to talk about is non-REM sleep. And it was previously thought that REM sleep was more important for learning and for memory consolidation as you're sleeping, but newer research says that non-REM sleep is actually more important for that. And non-REM is also needed to feel more rested after a full night of sleep and more restored in addition to having an adequate amount of REM sleep as well. And the cycle repeats between 4 stages of non-REM sleep. And there are different stages that are lighter and deeper sleep and REM sleep. And the cycle repeats throughout the night, and there are about 4 to 5 cycles per night. The REM sleep part of the cycle increases in length every time a cycle happens. So throughout the night, the REM sleep portion gets longer. And sleep is regulated by circadian rhythms. So we were talking about melatonin a little bit. And the light cues are really important for that, like blue light, either from the sun or from your phone. And then you have this thing called a sleep drive. And it's kind of like a drive for hunger or for thirst, but it's more dangerous because your brain can actually make you fall asleep if you need it. So if you're operating machinery or driving a car and you're really sleep deprived, this could be a problem. And plasticity of the brain depends on an adequate amount of sleep, and plasticity of the brain is really important for everything that you do, but especially when you're thinking about learning, memory, and just having normal mood regulation throughout the day.
So now that we've talked a little bit about the science of sleep, I'm going to talk about prevalence of sleep issues. The difficulty sleeping or insomnia symptoms are not only among the most common sleep issues, but also just the most common medical complaints in general. So it's estimated that around 50 to 70 million people in the US have ongoing sleep disorders. And when we say sleep disorders, it doesn't have to be clinically diagnosed. It can be something as simple as trouble falling asleep and trouble staying asleep. So in 2020, 14.5% of adults had trouble falling asleep and 17.8% had trouble staying asleep. And women are also 40% more likely to have insomnia, and up to 75% of older adults experience symptoms of insomnia. In addition to these insomnia and like trouble staying asleep, falling asleep, those issues, we also have snoring, which is also a common sleep issue. So about 57% of men and 40% of women and 27% of children snore. And snoring alone may not cause sleep issues, except for maybe your partner, but sleep apnea can significantly reduce the quality of your sleep. And many snorers are either diagnosed with sleep apnea or they go undiagnosed. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what obstructive sleep apnea actually is. But up to 70% of snorers have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, and the remaining 30%, many of them might still also have sleep apnea, just not diagnosed. And I also want to talk about sleep duration. So in addition to all these issues, short sleep duration is also a sleep issue on its own. So it's defined as less than 7 hours of sleep every night. And it's recommended that adults get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. And it's difficult with work, life things to get that sleep, but that is considered short sleep duration. Even if you feel like you're getting enough sleep, less than 7 hours is still considered short sleep duration. And as you can see on the map to the right, this is showing the age-adjusted prevalence of short sleep duration throughout America. So I thought it was kind of interesting to see there almost seems to be a trend with the East having higher levels of short sleep duration, whereas the West Coast seems to have less prevalence, so people are getting enough sleep. Illinois is kind of in the middle, seems to be not doing too terribly, but I just thought it was interesting, kind of goes with like the culture of the East versus West Coast too. And also just goes to show you that there are so many factors involved with sleep, and it can be something as simple as where you live, so you might not have total control over it. And sleep, there's a strong correlation between sleep and overall health. So higher percentages of those in fair or poor health and those with frequent balance in walking and memory problems report sleeping less than 6 hours a day, and having frequent insomnia, frequent daytime fatigue, poor quality of sleep, and potential obstructive sleep apnea symptoms. Okay, so now that we talked about the prevalence, I'm going to talk about why you don't wake up feeling rested. So very obvious, but the most likely reason you don't wake up feeling rested is because you're not sleeping long enough or consistently. So as Dia talked about, we need about 4 to 6 cycles of sleep every 24 hours to feel fresh and rested. And each cycle contains the 4 individual states that Dia mentioned. So each cycle lasts about 90 minutes. And ideally, you want to get 4 to 6 cycles. So if you kind of add it up, you want to get that adds up to at least 6, but normally you would want at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then, so as Dia mentioned, the non-REM stage 3 is known as the deep sleep. So if you're woken up during that stage, even if you get plenty of sleep, you might feel when you wake up a little groggy. And that might be the reason why you've gotten plenty of sleep throughout the night and then you still feel pretty groggy in the morning. You might have woken up during that stage. Other things that might be contributing to why you don't feel rested is having an irregular sleep schedule. So I think most people on the weekends, the tendency is you go to sleep a little bit later and then you wake up later. But having an inconsistent schedule can also lead to you not feeling super rested. So it's almost like you're being jet lagged every week. So you want to try to keep it consistent, not changing your bedtime by more than 30 to 45 minutes every night if it's possible. And then other things, you might have an underlying sleep disorder like obstructive sleep apnea that might be contributing to not getting the best quality of sleep. And then using electronics, I'm also guilty of this as well. Kind of scrolling on your phone as you're getting ready for bed. But all these things, as Dia talked about, with melatonin production, it can interfere with that. So you want to try not to use any electronics, whether it's your phone, your computer, or TV, too late into the night. And then sometimes like a nightcap might help you fall asleep, but it might contribute to you not getting the best quality of sleep. And alcohol is a diuretic, so you might be waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And as a lot of you mentioned, excessive stress and anxiety is kind of one of the reasons you might be having not the best quality of sleep. And then caffeine or heavy meals close to bedtime can also interfere with that. And also poor sleep environment, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but whether it's a noisy environment, I know especially living in Chicago or just anywhere in the city, it's hard to control the noise. There's just something going on outside all the time. So if you do feel like you're waking up in the middle of the night because of noise, earplugs might be a good idea to use. And then having light in your room, whether it's coming from the street or just looking around your room, if you notice any lights from devices or anything like that, that might also be contributing. And I want to talk about the graphic on the right here. So I think there are questions about glycemic index, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the factors that might be contributing to your ability to wake up in the morning. So these researchers at UC Berkeley did a really cool study looking at 4 factors that are affecting your ability to wake up in the morning. So it's whether or not you're getting enough sleep, it's just how you feel in the morning, how awake you feel. So they looked at 4 factors in particular. So physical activity, prior sleep, breakfast composition, and glucose response. So when it comes to physical activity, I think a lot of us kind of associate, like if you tire your body out, then you are going to be able to sleep more throughout the night. But that is true, but it also depends on what time of the day you're getting the physical activity. So if you're getting more movement during the day, that leads to better sleep and then waking up more alert. Whereas increased activity at nighttime can interfere with your quality of sleep. So if you're thinking about like when the best time for you to exercise, would be earlier in the day, particularly in the morning, will really help you with getting better sleep. And then prior sleep, so sleeping longer and later than typical was associated with higher next morning alertness. So sleeping longer part, I think that makes sense. But sleeping later I thought was an interesting finding, but the sleeping later part was also associated with waking up later. And when you wake up later, you're kind of waking up in the higher upswing of your 24-hour circadian rhythm. So that might be contributing to why you're feeling more alert. And then breakfast composition is also an interesting finding. They saw that increased carb led to increased morning alertness. And then having too much protein was associated with decreased alertness. So if you're thinking about what the best breakfast you might be having in the morning is, you want to do more carbs. You can include some protein, but you want to focus more on high quality carbs, like oatmeal or whole wheat toast, things like that. You also don't want to kind of spike up your blood sugar too much because that was associated with less alertness. So I think in the chat was talked about a little bit about glycemic index. Yeah. So you want to eat things that are not going to spike up your blood sugar too fast, something just filled with pure sugar. So if you're eating like pancakes, if you're putting a ton of syrup on top or French toast, whatever it may be, you want to kind of stay away from things that are going to kind of give you like a rush, sugar rush, and then a crash immediately after that. So you want to think about more complex carbohydrates that are going to give you consistent energy throughout the day. Right. And then we also, I talked about sleep apnea a little bit earlier, but I think a lot of us have heard of sleep apnea, but we don't really know what it actually, what is happening with someone with obstructive sleep apnea. So if you can see the picture on the right, what happens during sleep apnea is that the muscles that support the soft tissues in your throat, such as your tongue and soft palate, temporarily relax. So when these muscles relax, your airway is narrowed or closed, and then your breathing is momentarily cut off. So if you know anyone who snores, or if you've been next to people who snore, you might sometimes notice that they stop breathing all of a sudden, and this is what is happening. If you do have sleep apnea, a lot of times they will use a CPAP machine, which prevents the collapse of your airway by providing pressurized air throughout the night. And as we mentioned, a lot of people might have sleep apnea and they just haven't been diagnosed yet, and that can significantly affect your quality of sleep. And a study also found that sleeping position is very important in your quality of sleep. So they found that people who prefer to sleep on their side will sleep better than those who like to sleep on their back, and that higher frequency of turning during the sleep will reduce sleep quality. And also higher bedroom levels of air pollution, carbon dioxide, noise, and temperature were all linked independently to lower sleep efficiency. So there's a lot of things that can be involved with how the quality of sleep you're getting every night. So something as like sleeping position, you might not think you have a ton of control over that, but kind of tossing and turning more might be associated with having uncomfortable bed pillows or bedding. So you just want to look at whether you see your bed as one, like a place to sleep. So if you're doing a lot of work on your bed, or if you are snacking on your bed, things like that, those associations can also affect whether or not you get great sleep. So another thing is lighting, as I mentioned earlier. If you're getting a ton of light through your window, or a bunch of devices in your room, even your phone just lighting up notifications throughout the night, those things might affect your quality of sleep. So just look around your room, and if you feel like you're not getting great sleep, just think about which things that you can alter in order to get your room to be the best place for your sleep.
Thank you. Those really good tips. And I wanted to also note that somebody mentioned a snoring spouse or a partner. I think that's something worth looking into, because you wake up to them stopping sleep or stop breathing. Whether you know it or not, you're kind of patterning with them, and when they stop, and it's significant enough, you're waking up. And think about the number of times during the night that both of you are waking up because of the apnea. So it really does affect both partners. So that's something to think about. But thank you again for doing all that, Nicole. And Dia, you are up next.
Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to mention about sleeping on your side and its benefits, if you want to do that and find it difficult, something that I found that helps is putting either a body pillow or the thickest pillow you can find next to you, and it makes it kind of difficult for you to roll over onto your back or onto your stomach. Obviously, that could be more difficult if you are sleeping next to somebody, but yeah, that's just a tip to try. It'll keep you on your side. And now we're going to talk about some of the domino effects of inadequate sleep. And this slide is really a summary of a multitude of things that could happen. And this list could really go on and on. But just to start, a lack of restorative sleep can it can erode emotional resilience. So what happens during sleep is that it fosters emotional resilience through a neurochemical reset. And this allows both serotonin and dopamine to rebalance themselves as you're sleeping. And this is crucial for mood stabilization. Mood swings, impulsivity, suicidal thoughts, paranoia, and even hallucinations can occur if there's enough disruption in this neurochemical balance. So without enough sleep, all of those symptoms can occur, along with problems concentrating. There's an increase in the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. There's slower response times and recovery times, and this could lead to issues with work, just being less efficient, having conversations normally, and maybe even lead to things like car accidents if you're having slower response times. The production of growth hormone can also be affected by inadequate sleep, and this can affect children and adolescents especially. Many sleep experts actually recommend delaying the start of school to maybe 10 a.m. or later because adolescents naturally sleep and wake up later than the current standards, which have school starting at 7 or 8. And they also need more sleep generally than adults. So yeah, the fact that sleep affects growth hormone and that's the way that school is set up is really a problem. And chronic sleep deprivation can even lead to development of other health conditions such as diabetes or heart disease. So it's really important to remember that sleep not only just affects your mood and your functioning the next day, but really long-term, a lot of things happening in your body. It can even have negative effects on your immune system. So especially with the pandemic and just getting back out into the world and not wearing masks, like people's immune systems are not where they used to be. So that's also something to consider, just where we are right now. Yeah. Let's see. And in addition to response times, there's also limited recovery time. So if you have any injuries, it could take longer to get better. And that's true for both poor mood and with poor sleep. So if mood affects sleep, then those things can really compound on each other if other things going on, like recovering from an injury or another health issue. And that's all I've got for this slide.
Thank you. So we've talked about disruptions and how important it is. So let's think about it a little bit. Thinking about new babies, night shift rotation, on-call, snoring, those kinds of things that wake you up. Also, about 20% of our population works the night shift. 10,000 babies are born each day in the US, and parents are sleepless. And we have 802 plus residents and 550 plus rotating night shift nurses at Rush. So you think about the number of people that are sleepy. So even if you do work the evenings or the night shifts, you want to think about some of the things that you can do for yourself when you leave work in the morning or through the night. That you want to minimize the amount of exposure you have to sunlight. So definitely wear your sunglasses, use the visor, do all that, that you can kind of keep things kind of minimal for the sunlight exposure. You want to consolidate your sleep hours versus short naps. Now, I know for some families that you take a short nap in the morning, you've got the kids that you need to care for, you have to do it, and then you try to get a nap before you go to bed, before you go to work, and that really does create more exhaustion. So if there's any way that you could get a solid block of time and then a short nap, that might be a little better way to try. And again, when you try something, only try one thing at a time and do it for a couple of days in a row to allow your body to readjust. It takes about 5 to 7 days. You want your environment to be dark and cool. You want your body to kind of cool down so it can go to sleep. You want to watch your phone settings. We mentioned about the brightening of the phone or the calls, that you set your phone so that you only have emergency calls coming through and not advertisements. Be careful with caffeine. If you can, limit it to stopping around 4 hours before you intend to sleep. And do have a light meal. It is important that you have a light meal before you leave, and then by the time you get home, there is some digestion that's occurred. The food is now into your intestines, not in your stomach, and you're a little bit better able to settle. Also, kind of a fun comment was about the supraclasmatic nuclei's role. And that is in the anterior part of your hypothalamus, and it's the principal circadian pacemaker. So it's a very important thing. It's influenced by light. So you do have something in your brain that's picking up on all those little red and the green lights in your room with all your electronics, your phone brightening, a full moon, whatever it is. If you can turn those a different way so they're not in your sight, that would be wonderful. And you know, this is like the biological clock in your brain, so this is a very important thing. And if you need to wear a sleep mask, it might help you. And try it for a few days in a row and see if it makes a difference. The first time I tried it, it worked so well that I kind of startled when I needed to take the mask off because it had been so dark. So just to get used to that, but definitely try it and see if that does anything for you. All right, now let's talk a little bit about dreams. This is kind of a fun part of it. That you know, REM happens about an hour or an hour and a half after you're falling asleep, and REM is when you have your most vivid dreams. Now, about 1 in 250 people do not dream. Many people do not remember their dream. And some of the tricks you can do is if you have a dream that startles you awake, write it down. Even if you're sleepy, just a scribble, write it down so that in the morning it reminds you that you had some dream that you wanted to talk about. Some of the common dreams, one of them is being chased. So if you have a dream about being chased, it could mean that you're avoiding or refusing to accept something. Now, if you are doing the chasing, it might feel like you're falling behind, so you're running after something. If you have a dream about being unprepared for a test, and who doesn't, you want to think about your real life deadlines and are you prepared for those deadlines? And if you're feeling unprepared, you might have this dream. Falling is the most common dream, and it's a really deep sensation of helplessness. So again, kind of think about how that feels in your daytime hours and what you might like to do to kind of get some ability to manage those dreams. If you have the feeling of flying in a dream, it's because you've overcome an obstacle, you feel freedom, independence, and you really could also have the feeling of wanting to escape a stressful situation. So it can go on either side there. Losing a loved one in a dream could just mean a change in relationship. Mortality, actually a dream about death, can talk about the ending of something. So whether it's relationship, a job, a significant life change, that will bring your attention to how much it's impacting you. A dream about teeth falling out. About 39 people report teeth falling out, and that is usually a sense of helplessness or loss. Freud would say it's the subconscious fears about intimacy, and it could be, in some cultures, they believe that it means someone will die. So, however it is, it's kind of interesting to hang on and like write down what your dreams are and kind of see what the pattern is. If you're able to remember them, that's kind of a fun, interesting thing to look back at. And if you'd like to get some assistance with it, it truly does help if you've got some kind of a log showing what types of things you're dreaming about. Now, when sleep becomes a problem worthy of assistance, I want you to look at these things and see if there's any things that's happening. And again, if you're waking up exhausted, you have to think about that circadian rhythm, that if you're feeling jet lagged all the time, what are you doing to create that? And a lot of times it's that not going to sleep or not waking up within the same hour of each day. If you have sleep apnea, your sleep area itself can't be managed. So you sleep in a call room, you have a partner that's restless, you have kids or beloved pets that seem to join you at 3 in the morning. You want to think about, is that enough that you want to make a change here, that you want to be able to get some assistance around how you manage that. You definitely want to pay attention to a red flag if you're falling asleep while you're doing a task, if you're in a class, especially if you're driving. If you're sleeping less than 5 hours a night, 3 nights a week. So think back this last week, 5 hours a night, 3 nights a week. That definitely will impact how you're living. And so keeping a journal about that would be very helpful. If you're using anything to kind of medicate yourself about trying to get to sleep and you're doing it regularly, that's another thing you want to pay attention to. And your decreased ability to just manage stress, and that's telling you that you're not sleeping well, you're less tolerant, and that definitely is something that you want to check that box and be able to get some assistance with that. So many of you do very well around sleep. So what is it that works for you? And if you would share that, just as they did last week, and take a look at what showed up last week. But go ahead and use that same QR code, the same passcode, and be able to identify what works. And one of the best things I think is investing in a great pillow. So for some of you, you've got the same pillow that you had when you were a child, right? Even changing your pillowcase, changing your air filter in your apartment or your house is really helpful. Um, magnesium glycinate, definitely. The dark room, I think, is great. Being able to deal with what's on your mind before you go to sleep, not thinking that you're going to be able to settle it falling asleep, that your mind is still going to try to fix it. So it's very important that you think about what it is that you can write down about the things that you're worried about and be able to kind of deal with them as they're coming up. Right. Well, thank you for that. Definitely a cool room. Yes. White noise is really good. I'll actually share with you about sound alpha waves. That's wonderful. So that's a good thing. And Insight Timer, we'll talk a little bit more about Insight Timer. And that's a free app to Rush employees and students. So yes, so white noise, pink noise, brown noise, there's all kinds, whatever works best for you. Alpha waves is really something that is similar to your brain waves and it will calm you. So try one of those. That's really good. So thank you for all of you that have added to that. I see one more person typing. We'll let them pop on and then we'll head on to the next thing. Yes, warm shower, bath, whatever you can, your time will allow you to do that. Anything that's not a blue screen, to allow yourself to have some kind of rhythm at the end of your night so that you turn off all your things before you plan to sleep. And that's important. So thank you again for everybody that has provided things in here. All right, so we do want to set ourselves up for success. So Dia, would you like to take us through this next slide?
Yes, so so one of the biggest things that we were talking about are blue screens. So I won't talk about that too much, but it's important to remember that the blue light on screens, like not just in the hour before you're sleeping, but as the sun is setting throughout the day, to expose yourself to less and less blue light throughout the evening. Blue light filters on glasses actually don't filter out 100% of blue light on screens. So you're going to need either inbuilt apps, like a lot of phones have apps that naturally have a night shift. So as the night progresses, at some point during the day, it'll flip and it'll usually be like a yellower or pinker color. There's also an app called Flux you can download for your laptop that turns your screen more pink and filters out more blue light. One of the biggest things to set yourself up for success is routine. We're talking about that a lot in the Slido slide there. That just doing relaxing things before bed, keeping them consistent, and doing that every night is a really good way to kind of signal to your brain, okay, it's time for me to go to sleep, and that really helps. And remembering that bed equals sleep, as Nicole mentioned, to have your bed be primarily as a place for sleep, not for studying or eating, among other activities that are using more parts of your brain, because then your brain's not going to want to shut off when you're trying to go to sleep. Earlier, we talked about the definition of sleep hygiene. As a reminder, sleep hygiene is what your practices around sleep are, but it's also how you sleep, your sleep environment, if someone's sleeping next to you and how they're sleeping, whether there are pets, if there are sounds, how hot or cool it is, among many other things. And so really just trying to prioritize making that the most comfortable for you as possible. Trying melatonin or medication if that's what you need. If there is a sleep disorder, is also something that you can ask your doctor about. But research has shown that CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is actually a better first step for addressing sleep issues before trying melatonin or medication. And then some people say some foods or drinks like walnuts or cherry juice, like Judy mentioned, may have melatonin and may help you fall asleep. And it also can be found in gummy or pill form. And then we also talked about magnesium glycinate, and that can help sleep quality. especially in terms of talking about falling asleep and staying asleep throughout the night. Let's see. And when it comes to physical exercise, it's been shown that taking a light evening stroll is helpful, signaling to your brain that it's later in the day. More heavy exercise, more strenuous exercise should be limited to the morning if possible, because if you're doing that in the evening time, that releases endorphins and other hormones that kind of tell your body that it's not time to sleep yet. And being alert to what you're eating and drinking before sleep. So we did talk about alcohol and caffeine and avoiding those before sleep, but also fatty foods disrupt sleep. If you're eating larger amounts of food before sleeping, it's recommended that you stop about 6 hours. Sorry, that's for caffeine. If you stop eating about 4 hours before sleep, if you're going to have a large meal, and then limit caffeine prior to 6 hours before sleep. A good rule of thumb is that if you can't see the sun at all, you probably shouldn't be having anything that would impede you being able to fall asleep that night. And one last thing that you can do if you're a part of Rush, staff, employees, or students, is make an appointment at the Wellness Center. And you can also talk about sleep-related problems there and how sleep might be impacting other things like your mood and functioning at work. Thanks. I think you're muted.
Thank you. Last time, there were two comments that came up on this slide when we were talking about it. So if you are thinking about wanting to try CBT therapy, you would want to have CBT-1 therapy, and our Dr. Sheila Dowd is one of those who you'd want to make an appointment with in the Wellness Center. The other thing is with Insight Timer, one of the favorites around sleep is called Deep Sleep Meditation by Andrew Johnson. And in order to get to Insight Timer, you can go on the wellness website and get the link for the free. You're totally free to use that. Or you could go Insight Timer at rush.edu in order to get to it. And one other thing about the computer, there is an app called Flux, F.LUX, and it takes out all the blue light. So that was a recommendation from last time as well. All right, so what about anything that you would be willing to do to start today that you haven't done before that might help your rest, might help enhance your sleep? Is there anything that you can think of that might assist you? I think the idea about trying to go to bed at the same time, you can use any kind of a timer that you have that reminds you that it's close to time to go to bed. That's just kind of a nice reminder, especially if you're scrolling and you're down some rabbit hole. It's just a good reminder to come off. No phone in the bedroom. That's even great for waking up, and that your phone is not the first thing you grab before your feet touch the ground. That's wonderful. Being able to pay attention to how much sleep you get. Some of the apps, Fitbits, kinds of things, actually track how much deep sleep you're getting. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to pay attention to, that if you're tired, you can actually see over the last couple days how much deep sleep did you actually get. Okay. All right, we've got a couple more people trying to add in there. Yeah, a goal of 6 to 7 hours of sleep. And I know sometimes you think, oh, it'll never happen. If you count backwards and set your alarm that way, it actually works out better than trying to think ahead to what time you're going to bed and what time that you'll only get 5 hours, 4 hours. Try to in your pattern, always think ahead to when you have to wake up and think back 6 or 7 hours so that you can plan that, yep, I've got to be in bed by this time in order to get that. So that's wonderful. Journaling is good. Reading, laundry, dishes, anything that's not blue screen is wonderful. Talking on the phone is great too. So thank you for everybody who participated in that poll. All right, so what I'd like to do is give you,
Bring on the Easter fun with Bunny-approved sweets
so
and
just a
treats.
couple of seconds
From delicious dessert.
of alpha waves. So you can just get a sense of what that's like. And if you cannot hear, please let me know. You can sit back and close your eyes. That's great. Right, so that was just to give you a moment of what an alpha wave was. And so that's something that's very calming for your brain. And my hope is that you'd be able to take advantage of that. And then what we're going to do is talk about just a couple of resources now after this. All right, and I don't know if anybody has used alpha waves before, but it certainly is a wonderful way to calm. And then we'll go back to all right. So if you have any questions, you have any thoughts, go ahead and unmute and share. And what I'll do is just for a couple moments tell you a little bit about the Wellness Center. So as you know that the Wellness Center, any of the activities, any of the benefits through that is free for students, for employees, for residents, for anybody. We have a lot of services that go on there as well as activities and events. The Energy Pod is actually moving to the Fitness Center. The students will also have an energy pod over in the academic facility, so that is just like a wonderful benefit that'll happen. Again, it's free with no session cap, so you want to be able to think about when you can come over or even access it online, because we're able to provide counseling 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, telehealth or in person, and you can do your own scheduling, so you can pick out who you want, when you want to meet with them. And this is available to anyone in the Rush community with no limit. There is also the option of ComPsych, which is our employee assistance program, and that is a partner outside of Rush, 24/7. You can see the phone number on the screen, or you can go to the Wellness Center and get the phone number there. They offer 5 free sessions and then referral to a long-term provider, and it's available to immediate family as well as significant others, which I think is wonderful. Now, we did have somebody from the Center for Academic Excellence on last time. Shannon Lindsay joined us, and she talked about neurodivergent students and that the rhythms can be different for sleep, and so definitely to be able to either contact the Center for Academic Excellence or the Wellness Center if that's something that is a challenge for you and you would like some assistance with that. Again, the Wellness Center, the QR code, if you just go to Rush Wellness on inside Rush page, you'll be able to get to the wellness site. And that's just a nice little 5 minutes that you gift yourself about all the different things that are available on the wellness website, as far as the events, the recordings that are done, the videos that are there for wellness, quite a few things going on. In April, we have a event starting that each week there'll be a different challenge for wellness. So it's called Activating Wellness. And so pay attention to your emails on that, because as you complete each month's activities, you'll do a survey and be able to be entered into a drawing for some pretty amazing prizes. So pay attention for that. This is the wellness website. If you go to it, you're able to see that you can schedule your own appointments. You can go to all the different things that we've recorded and placed on there for your wellness. There is definitely a focus on confidentiality and privacy, so I'm hoping that you will trust that we'll take good care of you. And that if you are feeling unsettled, if you're feeling off, if you haven't slept, if something is keeping you up and it's just not okay, then please use the pager. Use the triage pager. It's carried 24/7 by a psychotherapist at Rush. It's 852323. And just when you don't feel that things are okay, and it just hasn't been that way for a couple days, just please use that pager. Talk to a psychotherapist. They will care for you that day, and then they will also help set up for the next couple days. Right. A Rush Student Assistance Program, 24/7 counseling, 6 free sessions, and then it switches over to your insurance. Right. So there's a lot of opportunities for support. Another thing you can do is the Facilitated Access Program, and that's wonderful because you can get clinical services sooner by using the Rush Facilitated Access Program. So if you just use the email Facilitated Access Navigators at rush.edu, they will help make appointments for you, and you'll get in sooner. They have different holds that will help you get in. So sometimes when we don't have a lot of time, this would be the perfect thing to be able to do that. And you can call 94 staff. That's the other phone number. Right. Some of the programs that we have, like I mentioned earlier, was Insight Timer at rush.edu. And if you go on this QR code, you go on the wellness website, or you use the Insight Timer at rush.edu, you'll be able to get into Insight Timer. It's like Headspace or Calm app, any of those things. Really wonderful to be able to use that when you wake up in the morning, before you come home from work, or maybe on your way home from work, or as you're settling in the evening. Very nice opportunity, great benefit. We do teach mental health first aid, so if that's something of interest to you, it's like CPR for your mental health. It does teach you the words to say when you see somebody is struggling, and instead of walking past them, to actually be able to go approach them and know how to do that approach and know what your resources are and have the confidence to do it. So just a wonderful program. And again, that's on the website. You can sign up for it there. There is coaching for nurses and docs if you want some career coaching to kind of help improve your performance and well-being. So that's another program that you'll find on the website. And my favorite is the peer supporters. We have volunteers staff who have volunteered half hour of their time to meet with anybody who just like to talk about things that are on their mind, and they don't know that they're really ready for counseling. They're not sure that they want to use the pager, but maybe they'd like to just talk to somebody else that could feel the same way that they do. And so this is a really nice thing to do. Again, it's on the website, or you can use the QR code to be able to do that, but it is the peer support program. So this brings us to the end of our program. We do have an evaluation if you'd like to do that. I would like to thank Nicole and Dia for using your experience, your excellence. I appreciate your time to talk about sleep and rest to all of us. And if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and unmute. Any words of wisdom, Nicole and Dia? Right, so I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. I hope all of you have a good evening, you rest well, and we'll see you next month.